Welcome to another day of math. 12.4 Multiply and Divide Equations, Tuesday, October 2nd, 2012, and this is brought to you by Mr. Eves Math. Our objective today is I can solve one-step equations using multiplication and division. Now let's go over a multiplication equation. Let's recall what it looks like. 2x equals 6. So we have 2 times the number x equals 6. Well, in order for us to solve this type of equation, we're going to use division. Just like we used the opposite for addition equations, we subtracted, and subtraction equations, we used addition to solve. Now before, we did 2 times something equals 6. And 2 times 3 equals 6, right? Now we're going to say we're going to solve it algebraically. And so we have 2x, which means 2 times x. And we're going to do the opposite of timesing by 2 to both sides. So we're going to do, to isolate this variable, we need to get x by itself. And so we divide by 2 on both sides. Now you're going to notice that 2 over 2 makes the fraction 1 whole, right? It's a whole fraction. And 1 times anything is that same number. So if we had 1 times 17, that is 17. 2 times 1, that's 2. Well, we have 1 times x, which is just going to be x on this side. Now we ask ourselves, how many times does 2 go into 6? And it goes 3 times. Now to double check to see if we solved it correctly, let's take the solution 3 and put it back into our equation. 2 times 3, is that 6? Yes. And so that is our correct solution. Now we're going to talk about a division equation. Now let's just make some induction, I guess, or deduction. We can deduce that if we solved using division, now we are going to solve using multiplication. And so here's an equation that looks like it. So we have x over 3 equals 6. That's really saying x divided by 3 equals 6, which we had before. And so we'd say, what number divided by 3 gives us 6? Well, we know that number is 18. But algebraically, we're going to solve this. So now we say, if we're dividing by 3, we do the opposite. We saw, what's the opposite of dividing by 3? Timesing by 3. So we times one side by 3, and then that cancels out. That makes 1 whole. And we do the same thing to the other side. We have 3 times 6, which is 18. X equals 18. We put it back in. 18 divided by 3, does that equal 6? You bet it does. Now, we have another few questions on the worksheet. The very first thing I'm going to do is we're going to notice that number 1 is 6x equals 18. Now, we just rewrote it down here so that we could show the steps. You don't. That's just part of the worksheet. Now, we're going to divide both sides by 6. Once we did do that, that leaves us with x on the one side, and 6 goes into 18 3 times. Put the 3 back into the equation to see if it's correct, and it really is. So 6 times 3 is 18. Same thing for number 2. We have dividing by 9, and it's really simple. We just find what number is next to the variable, and that's the number we're either going to times or divide by. And so we divide by 9 on this side, and then divide by 9 on the other side. Once we've done that, the 9's create 1. 1 times x is x, which leaves us with x on this side of the equation. And 9 goes into 81 9 times. We put that back into our equation. 9 times 9 is 81. Now you're probably thinking, Mr. Eves, this is really simple. We could just do it the old way of just saying what number times 9 gives me 81. And I know that it's simple that way, but what we're learning today is the process. We want to know how to be able to solve one-step equations using algebra. This next one is a division equation. And so since we're dividing by 4, we're going to do its opposite, which is timesing by 4. Well, when we times by 4, the 4's cancel out on the one side, and that leaves us with x on that side. And then on the other side, 4 times 12 is 48. If I put it back into the equation, 4 goes into 48 12 times, so that's true. We're going to do a couple more on the worksheet. So number 4, we ask ourselves, what type of equation is it? Well, we see that this equation on number 4 is a multiplication equation, so to solve it, we're going to use division. First thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 5. The 5 divided by 5 becomes 1. 1 times x is just x. And then 5 goes into 45 9 times. If I put it back into the equation, 9 times 5 is 45, so that's the correct solution. Number 5, we notice that it is a division equation. Whenever it's written like a fraction, we know that that means divide. And so we find out what number we're dividing by, which is 3, and we're going to times by its opposite. So times by, we're going to times 3. So dividing 3, we're going to times by 3. The 3's cancel out, and that leaves me with b on the one side, and 7 times 3 is 21. Now, number 6, before we do that, let's double check and make sure we put it into our equation. Put 21 back in for b, and that gives us 3 goes into 21 7 times, so yes, that is a correct solution. The next one is dividing again. We times by times by 10, and so that gives us 10 on one side and 10 on the other, and that the 10's cancel out, and that leaves me with w on the one side and 60 on the other. Put 60 back in for w, 10 goes into 60 6 times. So we're good there. Alright, the next thing we're going to talk about is the backside. And on the backside of the worksheet, we have a couple equations that we want to talk about. So on number 19 through 22, it says write the sentence as an equation, then solve the equation. We have a number, w, so w is important. Multiplied is important by 6. Is important, that means equal, and 78. So those are key things for this. And so we write our equation as w times 6 equals 78. Once we have that, we solve for it. Divide both sides by 6. And 6 divided by 6 is 1, which leaves us 1 times w, which is just w. And so w equals 6 goes into 78 13 times. We put it back in. 13 times 6 is 78. So we have the correct solution. Number 20, we have a number m. M is important. That's our variable. Divided is what the operation we're going to be doing. 8 is a number that we're going to have, and 13 is the equal sign, and 13 is another number. So we write it out as m divided by 8 is, or equals, 13. Well, we're going to do, if we divide by 8, we're going to times by 8 on both sides. So the opposite of timesing by 8 is dividing by 8, and the opposite of dividing by 8 is timesing by 8. And so, once we've done that, the 8's cancel out on the left side, leaving us just with m equals. And 8 times 13 is 104. We put that back in for m, and we see that that is a correct solution. Now, here's the challenge for you, some extra ones. Solve these equations using integers, which is positive and negative numbers, and also decimals. I hope you have a great day. I'm not going to go over the challenge because I want to see if you can do it on your own. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.